PR Connections Radio presents. This podcast is brought to you by LifeWave. Ready to elevate your wellness game? Meet X39 from LifeWave.com. This game-changing patch uses phototherapy to stimulate your skin, enhancing strength and stamina by channeling your body's innate energy. Simply apply it to harness infrared heat, naturally boosting your vitality. Want to learn more? Visit www.lifewave.com/VernD and step into a healthier, more active lifestyle today.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Breaking the Silence Beyond the Boundaries, where bold voices rise and limits fall. Today's episode is called Allowing Yourself to be Fully Transparent. And because this episode airs on Father's Day, I wanted to create a space for a conversation that for some of you may feel somewhat familiar, somehow unfinished, or maybe just long overdue. On Father's Day, we often celebrate the role. We celebrate fathers as the providers, the protectors, the disciplinarian, the encourager, the strong supporter, the man who showed up. We see that in endless rows of overpriced Father's Day cards with pictures of cartoon dads just grilling and fishing and golfing or with a tool belt just hanging from his waist, just ready to build just about anything. All of these supposed genuine roles that have been stereotypically assigned to fathers throughout the ages. But sometimes we also remember the man who may not have known how to show up in the way that we needed. So today I wanted to make room not only for the title of father, but for the relationship. Because beneath the title of father and beneath the title son or daughter, there is still a human being who may have words they never said, questions they never asked, and feelings they never knew how to explain. And I believe that this is where transparency truly begins. Now, earlier this week, I posted a quote from my book, Excerpts of Enlightenment. Thoughtful transparency is the true trail towards trustworthiness. Transparency is not about saying everything. And it's not about exposing every thought, reopening every wound, or forcing every conversation to happen all at once. Transparency, think about it, especially thoughtful transparency, is about creating trust, honesty, and understanding to fully say what matters the most. It's about moving beyond those old roles. It's about old assumptions and old emotional boundaries. It's about asking, can I see my father beyond the role that he played? Can I understand the heavy loads that he must have carried? Can I acknowledge what I needed, what I received, what I missed, and what I still need to say? And if you are a father, it may also mean asking, how can I allow my child to see more of who I really am? How can I speak beyond authority, beyond expectation, and allow honesty to truly create connection? Now, that said, I want to begin with a message from my sister, reflecting on fatherhood and transparency.
My father, John Palmer, was an example of demonstrating in action and expressing in clear, definitive terms what was expected from each of us as we matriculated as a family community. I believe this trait from my father has shaped the way I provide leadership in my professional life, which is focused upon strengthening disinvested communities. I do believe that those that are a part of the teams that I have the privilege and honor of providing leadership know what is expected in the pursuit of our common goals and missions by my actions and expressions in definitive terms. As to my father's notion of transparency, I believe or perceive that my father's demonstration of transparency within our family community was protective rather than boisterous. I feel that I learned from my father that there is place, time for, and method of full transparency depending upon the maturity and the growth needs of the listener, but not with the purpose of being dishonest. I learned from my father that how you present yourself in positive, value-based, calm sincerity is a more impactful means of communicating transparency than constant, abrasive, shock-provoking speech and quest for attention. The standout moment for me with respect to my father's vulnerability that was connected to his transparency was his response to and living through the passing of our mother, his wife. He was clear and honest that he wanted to deal with this moment in a time that was his way and not based upon the expectation of others, and therefore politely asked for permission to do so. He was honest in his actions, not rude or offensive, but clear as to what he needed to endure and proceed through this moment of time. He demonstrated strength, honesty, and commitment to being himself without apology. I am still trying hard to accomplish being myself without bowing to the expectation of others, striving to do so in a way my father unapologetically carried himself. In this regard, he continues to be a model for me.
Absolutely. And what she has said truly has embodied his essence in terms of attitude, behavior, and communication throughout. And we're going to talk about that because today I want to explore what I call the ABCs of transparency. Because whether you're a father or a child, there are expectations connected to all three. There's an expectation around attitude, the attitude we bring into honest conversations. There are expectations around behavior, how we demonstrate when truth is being shared. And there's an expectation around the way we communicate when something meaningful is finally being said. So we're gonna begin with A for attitude. When interacting with your father, do you remember him entering the conversation with openness, curiosity, humility, or defensiveness? And let me turn that question back towards all of us as well. Did you enter the conversation with your father expecting to understand him or expecting him to finally understand you? Did you listen with curiosity or were you already preparing to respond? You already knew what you were going to say. Or did you approach him as the person he was or as the person you wish that he had been? Sometimes when we talk about transparency, we focus only on what the person did not say. But our attitude also shapes whether someone feels safe enough to speak. And I want to pause here because I have a story to share about attitude, a story that reminds me that sometimes the way we enter a conversation determines the real truth. Now, my dad, like Most dads in the 60s and 70s, he led by authority. It was the expectation. The mother was the nurturer, and the father was the disciplinarian. Plain and simple. For those of you out there of a certain age, you saw those TV shows, Father Knows Best, Leave It to Beaver, The Andy Griffith Show, and lest we not forget, All in the Family's Archie Bunker. That's why, day in and day out, our mother could be heard saying, "You just wait till your father gets home," because she wasn't the disciplinarian. And that's all that was needed to be said. We knew going in that there was no explaining, no negotiating. There was just let me get my belt. Most often, his attitude was defined by the look. That said, if you know what's best for you, you'll get out of my way. And it was his attitude that shaped my attitude relative to transparency. I knew what to expect and did not risk opening up. My expectation was that his attitude was shaped by garnering respect through discipline, which left little room for transparency. When I was talking to my brother about this episode, he told me that what he remembers most was when it was time for him to wake up in the morning, my dad would just kick the side of his bed one time without a word, and my brother knew he'd better get himself in gear or else. That to me showed both attitude and behavior. Which brings me to the B, behavior. When you think about your father's actions, did his behavior create emotional safety? Let's think about B for behavior as we switch to the next slide. Did he listen without interrupting? Did he make room for your voice, your questions, your feelings, or your truth? Now I have to stop right here and breathe again, because here there is definitely a generation gap. Questions? Feelings? Please. I have 4 kids who were raised with the sternness delivered by my father, but without the rod, so to speak. But they knew in no uncertain terms that no meant no. There was no lack of transparency in what the father's desired outcome would be. So, okay, this is where the notion of gentle parenting comes in. And it seems to be predominant with today's parents who weren't necessarily spared the rod. Gentle parenting asks, how can I guide my child without breaking their spirit? It invites parents to discipline with direction, but not domination. Now, let me backtrack here. I have another story about behavior because sometimes what someone does or does not do teaches us safety and how safe transparency feels. Now, I can mildly attest to a form of gentle parenting back in my day, right? My father would retreat to the living room, close those double doors behind him, turn on his music, and read the newspaper. This would be his most gentle way of saying, I'm off limits, don't even think about coming in here. That was his gentle parenting. So the question becomes, did your father stay present when conversations became uncomfortable, or did he shut down, walk away, change the subject, or rely on authority to end the discussion? Think about it. And again, let's ask ourselves the same question. Did we create safety for him, our father, to be honest? Did we allow him to be human? Or did we allow him to be the father that we expected him to be? Or did we leave space for growth, apology, explanation, or even silence? My sister's message, she mentioned quite often he was unapologetically himself. Because sometimes transparency is not only about what is said, it is also about what our behavior communicates before the words ever come out. A person may say, "You can tell me anything," but their behavior, on the other hand, may say, "Only tell me what I am ready to hear." And that matters. And then we come to C. C for communication. I asked a few people this question. When communicating with your father, did he speak in a way that invited understanding, or did his words sometimes feel final, distant, or difficult to question? And did he explain his thoughts, or did he expect you to simply accept them? When it came to fathers back in the day, explain his thoughts? What? There was only "because I said so." We learned early not to ask why. There was no weaving the whys of critical facts and details. There was one response that stuck out for me. He said, and this person his response is from one of my really good friends that I respect and love. And this is what he said about his dad, telling him, "If you do something that is wrong, bad, unlawful, and you get away with it, and you know that it's wrong, bad, and unlawful, and you think you can do it again and again and again, you will be caught. Remember my words." So I asked my friend, did he speak like his father, speak from love, fear, frustration, protection, or pride? And in this case, he said, all of those. So what about you? Growing up, did you communicate to your parents what you truly felt, or did you choose silence to keep the peace? I know I did. Did you ask the questions you wanted to ask, or did you decide it was just easier not to know? Did you speak to be understood, or did you speak from old hurt, old assumptions, or old expectations? Were your parents transparent about what they were struggling with, especially when it came to finance? Probably not. Communication across generations can be complicated because many of us were raised in homes where certain things were understood, but of course, never explained. Love maybe have been present, but not always expressed. Were you in a family where fathers and daughters and mothers and sons said, "I love you" all of the time? Sacrifice may have been constant, but not always discussed. Pain may have been carried, but not always named. And that is why transparency requires more than just words. It requires timing. It requires tone. It requires trust. It requires the willingness to say, "I want to understand this differently now." So I'm thinking about another story about communication. And growing up, I referred to my father as Daddy, not Daddy. It was just Daddy. It was just the way I pronounced it. But for some reason, I can't remember actually calling him that to his face, like, "Hey, Daddy, da 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 da." I can't remember any of that. It was always like in the third person, like Daddy said this or Daddy said that or Daddy told you blah, blah, blah. Nor do I have a distant memory of him calling me by my name. And that's super weird, right? I mean, I was in my 30s when he passed away, and it wasn't a difficult relationship, but that's something I don't remember. But my brother always called my dad Pops. And I distinctly remember hearing my dad always calling him by his name. Michael, shut the door. You're letting flies in. Michael, you better check your attitude. This is an oddity that I'll just never figure out. And now I always hear his sons calling him Pops. I distinctly remember my best friend and I growing up. We talked all the time. And we started to refer to our fathers by their first names. She would say, yeah, JP, or yeah, John Palmer. He said this. And I'd say, okay, so what did James have to say to you? And this was like in junior high school. It was all privately, of course, but it rang in our heads as constant authority, disciplinarian, as they both were. So today, as we reflect on fathers, fatherhood, and the relationship that shaped us, I want us to think about transparency, not as a demand, but as an invitation that softens our attitude, an invitation that aligns with our behavior, an invitation that chooses communication, that builds trust instead of protecting those old boundaries. Because thoughtful transparency does not require us to say everything, but it may ask us to finally say what matters most. And perhaps this Father's Day, whether you are honoring your father, remembering your father, grieving for your father, or becoming a father, or still trying to understand the space between you and your father, this is an opportunity to ask, what have I been holding back? What assumptions am I ready to release? What conversations am I ready to approach differently? And what truths can I share with thoughtfulness, with courage, and with love? Because when transparency is thoughtful, it does not tear relationships down. It creates, like I said, a trail towards trustworthiness. Thanks for tuning in to Breaking the Silence Beyond the Boundaries. See you next week when we recap in the finale of season 2 and jumpstart season 3, Breaking the Silence After Dark, with what keeps you up at night. So until next time, bye-bye.
Classy Communications provides public relations and marketing solutions for businesses, professionals, and nonprofit organizations. They can deliver the true meaning of your business with press releases, social media marketing, web development, email marketing, book publishing, and much more. Wherever your potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success. PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.